Well, a fine morning to you, my fellow patriots. What a beautiful, beautiful morning to welcome you to the 322nd consecutive Friday meeting of the East Valley Red Friday Patriots. May I see the hands of those of you who attended our 300th consecutive Friday assembly on February 28, 2025. 300. If you were here on the 300th, raise your hand. Good. How about our 200th assembly on March 24, 2023? 200th assembly. How about our 100th assembly on April 23rd, 2021? Anyone here that attended our very first Red Friday assembly on May 24, 2019? Anyone here that plans to attend our 350th assembly on February 13th? Let me suggest that some of you should plan to attend that 350th because we might not be upright come 400. You know, speaking of upright, here a while back I attended a very nice gala event for veterans and their spouses, and it was hosted by a local liberal arts college here in the valley. Now, unfortunately, Hank had already committed to another engagement, so she was unable to go with me to the ball. Now, the invitation suggested that it would be appropriate for military veterans to wear their formal dress uniform if they so desired. So I decided to comply with the dress code and wear my dress blues. And when I arrived at the ballroom, it was literally packed with people. It was literally packed with people, and I was quite pleased to see a number of cavalry vets there. Furthermore, I can assure you that there was no shortage of extremely young, idealistic ladies in attendance, one of whom approached me for conversation soon after I arrived. She said, "Excuse me, Sergeant Major, but would you seem to be a very serious man?" She said, "Is something bothering you?" I said, "Negative, ma'am. I'm just serious by nature." Well, the young lady came a little closer and she started looking at the awards and decorations on my uniform, and she said, "You've got quite a few medals, Sergeant Major. Did you see a lot of action?" I said, "Ma'am, that depends on what you mean by action." Well, I suppose that the young lady was tired of trying to start up a conversation with me, and she said, "You know, Sergeant Major, you should lighten up a little, relax, and enjoy yourself." Well, without commenting, I just stared at her in my typical serious manner. Finally, the young lady looked at me and she said, "You know, I hope you don't take this in the wrong way, but be honest. When was the last time you had sex?" I said, 1959. She said, "Well, there you are. You really need to chill out. Quit taking everything so seriously. I mean, no sex since 1959? Isn't that a little extreme?" Well, I glanced at my watch and I said, "You think so? It's only 21:30 now." Join me for the pledge to all glory. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, thank you. I do not think that we have any first-time guests here today, but I would like to ask those of you that are here for your second visit with us, will you stand, please? If you're here for your second visit. These three were here last week, first time. We're glad to have you back with us today. Thank you very much for joining us. I think we need a hoo-ha for these guys at least to return after seeing us for the first week. Most people won't. If you were born in the month of August, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize you, and if you would please stand. If you were an August birth child, anybody here for August? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Happy birthday to you folks. Thank you for joining us today on this beautiful August morning. You're going to turn 80, Grant, isn't that correct? What date? August 11th.
80 years old.
Where's that?
We got two of you August 5th. We got two of you August 5th birthdays here. August 11th, I mean, August 11th.
We're at August 11th?
Hey.
What time in the morning? All right. 7 o'clock in the morning.
I think we owe these guys a hoo-ha for these birthday kids. You know, this morning, you folks were treated with donuts in recognition of our birthday celebrants, and I think we should thank both Inez and Chuck Heineman for sponsoring those treats. Inez and Chuck, raise your hands, please. Right back there. Let's give these folks a round of hoo-ha. Pull them out of their pocket. And also, Grant actually picked them up for you this morning, correct?
No.
Come again?
No. I'll tell you later.
Where's Jim?
Good, Jim.
No, it wasn't his fault, it was my fault.
Okay. So are you saying that Grant should be up here on screen rather than you, Inez?
No.
This has become confusing, and I think it needs an offline conversation. Well, at least we all had donuts. That's a great thing. You know, next Monday, August the 4th, marks the United States Coast Guard's 235th birthday. And the Coast Guard was actually created when the first Congress authorized the Secretary of the Treasury, in that time Alexander Hamilton, to construct 10 vessels. And these were to be known as revenue cutters to combat the smuggling and enforcement of our tariff laws. At that time, they were known as the Revenue Marine. And yes, we had tariffs dating back to that period. Nothing new. Well, today, the Coast Guard has a unique status among this country's military services. During peacetime, it's assigned to the Department of Homeland Security during wartime, or when the President or Congress direct it. It's managed by the Department of Defense, and it would be included in the Department of the Navy. And because the Coast Guard is charged with enforcing a range of domestic laws as well as discharging a range of military duties, it is exempt from the Posse Comitatus Act, which bars the other services from law enforcement duties. Now, currently, the Coast Guard has roughly 40,500 active duty personnel, more than 7,700 reserve personnel, and about 21,000 civilian auxiliary volunteers, 8,500 civilian personnel. And the Coast Guard maintains a fleet of 243 cutters a cutter being defined as any vessel more than 65 feet in length, 201 aircraft, and 1,650 boats defined as any vessel less than 65 feet in length, which generally operate near the shore and on inland waterways. So in addition to their constant presence along the U.S. coast and in major waterways, Coast Guard personnel have served in every one of America's major conflicts, including more recent Afghanistan and Iraq. And on any given day, Coast Guard law enforcement board approximately 144 vessels. Coast Guard small boats launch nearly 400 missions every day. And Coast Guard aircraft fly 164 operations. In a typical year, our Coast Guard will respond to over 20,000 search and rescue cases, and they will save more than 3,500 lives. I know that we have several Coast Guard veterans as members of our R.E.D group, to include at least 2 who retired from the U.S. Coast Guard. And I know that some of our Coast Guard members are unable to be present today due to being out of state, or they have personal commitments. But in their absence, we want to thank them and all Coasties for their service to this great nation. Are there any Coast Guard veterans present here today? Any Coast Guard veterans present here today? But I think that we owe that particular branch of service a resounding hoo-ah. May I have a hoo-ah? Okay. It is show and tell time. And we have a few folks that rounded up military-related treasure and asked if they could share their story behind this memorabilia this morning. So here we go. Nancy, I am going to turn this on for you. And I would like to suggest that Nancy will hold the microphone for whoever comes up to explain their story, and I will hold your items so that you can be hands-free and not having to fumble with it. So let's start with this book right here. And who is the owner of this book? Joseph Orlando. Come on up. Joseph, will you give us a little overview of this particular text?
When I was on my,
You're on.
Buckle my shoe, there we go. That's what happens when you work for AFN. So, this book, when I was on my finishing tour over in Germany, I got out as a European out. I was about to go back to the States. So I took a trip to Potsdam, Germany. And what's in Potsdam besides the East Block? Well, they had what they call the Berlitz Studios. The Berlitz Studios was a kind of a universal studio for the East Block. And they did all their propaganda movies there. That's what they did. And when I went there, they had some guys trying to, and people were, the buildings were all dark and dusty, and it was really bad. So people were trying to make money. So what did I see? I saw a book on the ground being sold. So I looked at it. I went through the pages, and I saw a 1936 Olympic book. This book with, and Dick just mentioned something too that I didn't realize. I thought it was part of it. But it had Jesse Owens all over it. A lot of other types of people there. And the pictures were actually They researched it, they got the pictures, and they pasted it on. So that's how you can see the photos there. And anyone want to guess how much I paid for the book? Close. $10.
Dutch marks or US currency?
Yeah, there you go. And this was in 1997, just before I was getting ready to go back. When the wall came down, I went to where they were still constructing the museum. I don't know if any of you've been there, but Checkpoint Charlie was still being renovated. So people were there. So once, when I got to Germany, it was November 8th, 1989. Everybody knows what happened the day after that. That's when the wall came down. So I was there, and so some years went by, 1997, and what was there was they did what they call it the Love Parade, and what it was a symbol. It was really a techno party for young kids. But they had coming down from the big thing from you can see it in the big tower. There's about 5 streets out. It was just a big party going on, and there was a lot of stuff like this being displayed. But the book, it's just a treasure. I show it whenever I got an opportunity. Yesterday, last week when I was here, I said, I'm gonna read the book. So anyway, that's my story.
Boy, there are countless photographs in here. Somebody really spent a lot of time on this, without question. And many of them were photographs of Olympians. All right, we have a few items here that I would like for the owner to come up. Who have we got here? Jim? Jim, you want to explain what you've got here?
These are, you're going to be seeing 3 maps essentially. This particular map is all the currents and winds that are in the Western Pacific around the islands. This is from World War II. When the pilots would go out on these missions, they would sew these in the inside of their jacket. So if they had to bail out, they'd have maps. This particular one is reversible because of the changes in weather between winter and summer.
This is majorly cool.
This next one is going to be a map, the other side please, thank you. Of Mindanao and all the local islands. So if you went down anywhere near the islands or in the islands, you would be able to get fixes on different points so that you could get to the coast and be picked up. And this is one of the main island Luzon. Same thing. Once again, you could find your way around. Now, these are all from World War II. My father was on a carrier, part of the Admiral staff, and he used to fly with the Admiral whenever the Admiral would go out. He'd take a 2-seater, the Admiral would take off in the carrier, and get up in the air, and he'd say, "Okay, Jim, take it over." My father's also Jim. And my dad would fly around for about an hour and a half or so, and the Admiral would say, "Okay, it's time to head back." And they'd go back and land. Of course, this was not during a time when they would be on alert. This is generally when they were back in Ulithi or one of the other areas. These items are mine, and it may bring back some memories. Cold War, they want to support the Cold War after the war. So what they were doing, they were still selling war bonds. And you would go to school 1 day a week with a dime or a quarter, and you would buy a stamp, and then you get to put it in your book. So this particular one is for the dime. and, the green one would be, the quarter. Must have left it at home.
These are the dimes.
This is a dime also. Must have left the quarter at home. At any rate, we used to, anytime we got a book filled, there was a big ceremony, and they present you with a new bond, and you turn in the book.
And you still have those bonds?
No, the bonds were in the kid's name. So, because I'm getting old, and I'm the only way they can take the bonds back is if it's in their name. So I gave the bonds to my kids.
Interesting story, Jim, thank you. Any of you ever collect green stamps? We got a belt buckle up here. Who does this belt buckle belong to? Michael? Tell us about this belt buckle. Destroyer Edgecourt Sailors Association.
Yeah, my father was in the Coast Guard during the war. And like most Vietnam vets, he never talked about it. He said he was in the Coast Guard and that was about it. I didn't know about this. But after I left, into the service, my sisters left, he got involved with the American Legion. He was a commander back in Toledo. And my mom was in the Navy. She was also commander at one time. And my dad also went to the 40 and 8, which is supposedly the elite portion of the American Legion. But they got involved with the Coast Guard. His group, his ship, which was the Pettit, which was a destroyer escort, and they all got together on a yearly basis. He never talked about that. So he had a lot in common with the Vietnam vets. You get home, you don't talk about it. So, and that's, I got that after he passed. So that's my remembrance of it.
Interesting. How long did your father serve in the Coast Guard?
I don't know. He only stayed at Coast Guard. He never told us how long he was in, but he was in South Pacific.
So do you have any other memorabilia from your father?
No.
Well, you're going to now. Because I am going to pin you with this United States Coast Guard pin. And you can put this in with your father's memorabilia. How about that? There you go, my friend. Is this drinkable? No. Who brought in the 33 export? Product of Vietnam. You've held on to this long?
That's actually second generation. The first generation on the label said they use formaldehyde as a, it doesn't have formaldehyde. This does not have formaldehyde. That's a second generation.
They were pretty confident.
That's why I've been around so long, because they make some
All right. So where did this come from?
I've had it for a long, 20-some years. I don't know what happened to 30, can't remember the place over in Europe that bought them out. But anyway, you can't find it anymore. So
This is cool.
but that is the second generation that doesn't have formaldehyde. And the other stuff did, definitely stated on there, it had formaldehyde as a preservative.
When you run across something with formaldehyde in it, bring me a bottle, buy an extra bottle. I can get another year or two maybe with some formaldehyde in my veins.
So I got mostly helicopter stuff. So this is originally was 41 inches long. It's a helicopter tail rotor chain. And as they got worn, we had to throw them away. People thought, oh, we can make a bracelet out of that. So we cut them down, and this has got a clip on it, but at the time, we put a cotter pin in there to hold them together. So that.
That was so cool. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, this is yours as well, is it not?
Oh, I got lots of stuff.
This is yours as well. So, if you will, turn around and face that group there, and then I'll hold this up.
Yeah, that was, it didn't come that way. I sandblasted and repainted all this. It came out of a helicopter in the Shaw Valley, September 1970, that was shot down. So that's what I know about that.
That is superb. This was shot down in there.
Yeah, that came out of the Shaw Valley. That's the tail rotor pedals, and this is for the exterior load. They've got a switch that you can push, or you can push this. It's in between. You push it with your foot to, you've got something on the hook. So that's what that thing's for.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Fred?
No, question. I have a question. Is that beer in the bottle or what?
Yeah. That's it. Still, I never opened it. It's been in there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We had that beer, and then they had a whiskey we used to get from Japan, was Suntory whiskey. It was terrible. It tasted like soap water. It was really bad. But Suntory today is a much sought after whiskey. Can go for as much as $200 a bottle. So they used to be real cheap stuff. But we used to get Suntory or 33.
This, Pam, is like decaf or regular.
Hi, I'm Fred Hammond, part of the original guys that showed up at IHOP. But this is a picture of my great-grandfather, and the story goes that we have two ships named after us. USS Hammond, but they're decommissioned now, and he was during the First World War, flew a single engine with one bomb in Italy, and he saved some guy's life. That's how he got the Medal of Honor. So it's on my wall, and it's probably my most cherished one. I cracked coming over. But my whole family was in the service. My mom, my dad, my stepdad, my uncles, we were all, one was in the Army, the rest of us were in the Navy. And that's where my mom met my dad in Bethesda Naval Hospital. And that was just, the ship went down, they had a torpedo hit it, and it went down off a carrier. They were, I think it was Lexington, it was burning. And they came up alongside and saved some of its lives, and then the ship got hit with a torpedo and down it went. So all I saw was the tail. It's not a film we have, we have a book named after it, and all kinds of stuff. So I mean, I got stuff in my drag wall that's really old. But that's pretty much my story. And Medal of Honor, we can't, if you haven't got it, you can't even be immediate family. You have to be like next of kin to get the Medal of Honor. I had a grade marker and the flag and all that kind of stuff, but you can't get the actual medal. So it's just immediate family.
He was killed in an auto accident.
Yeah, he was killed in an auto accident.
Very shortly after this particular Medal of Honor was bestowed upon him. He was quite a young man, and if I recall, I believe that he was the only naval officer that was actually presented with the Medal of Honor during World War I.
Yes, sir.
What do you say? What have we got here? What have we got here? Who belongs to this? Man, this is a collection of a lot of memorabilia here, to say the least. Wow. This goes back a ways. I'll hold this for you, Jim. You turn around and face your audience there.
This is from my father, all his medals that he had after he passed away. We put them together, my wife did this. He was a flight instructor at Douglas in World War II, B-17s. He moved to B-29s after that. Then he went to Marana and was a flight instructor out there with T-6s. So these are all his medals that he had. We put them together as a memorial.
Very, very nice. These kinds of memorabilia oftentimes thrown in a drawer someplace and forgotten, and ultimately end up in file 13 trash somewhere. It's great that you assembled this into a shadow box. That's beautiful.
Yeah, my wife did all the work and everything that we could find at the time of various pictures and medals. There's my dad right there.
On the end?
No, right about the middle here.
Right here?
Right here.
Right here.
That's my
He's a good looking man. What happened to you?
dad. I don't know. Okay.
Outstanding, Jim. Thank you, thank you. John, can you come up? John, you want me to bring this back to you?
Stinking gravity.
John Mullen is a Vietnam veteran, awarded 3 Purple Hearts, and he is also the author of a book that was published only 4 or 5 years ago, and it is all about his escapades while serving in Vietnam. John brought in this particular contraption today. I hope you did not have to wear this at any time.
We did.
But you want to explain it?
We became turtles. We lived off of that bag. You see the mess kit? Extra can't change. Well, I carried at least 3 can't change over there. And we still didn't have enough. We take the water out of the rice paddies, put water purification pills in. Can't change, shake it up. You're supposed to wait half an hour. You know, we went through about 18 water things a day. It was really hot and humid. Top pack, I carried, not that one just like it. I carried that. That was my home. I was a turtle. It took me everything in it. I had C4, I had blasting caps, I had smoke grenades, you name it, I had it in there. And we lived off of that bag. C-rations, different from the new ones. We only took the cans and cigarettes, toilet paper out of the regular food packs. This is when you're traveling. When you travel, this, I think everyone knows, the mess kit. It has the knife, fork, and spoon in it. And I have another one. Eating off of that. But I C rations over now. We got 2 meals a day, if we could get it. Out in the jungle, up in the mountains, we couldn't get it. We were eating Vietnamese food, rice paddies and rice. I'll put you a water buffalo. We were a month and a half up in the mountain, and no supplies coming. So we liked it because triple canopy jungle, we knew the Vietnamese and Vietnam wouldn't go up there, they were smart. We went up there, and I loved it because we knew if BC we were dumb enough to go up these mountains. We went up one, it took us about 2 hours to get up to the top, it took us a whole day to get down to the bottom. I had 6 men in front of me with machetes, could see where they hit. To get through. And I love that jungle. We like 6. And we went up there up to Haiban Pass, and the Haiban Pass is away. And I lost my whole platoon in Way City. It was took 100, on the company 160 men. My platoon had about 50. They walked out with 9 men on scratch. All the rest were either wounded or killed, 6 men killed. It goes through my brain all the time. Me myself for some of these things because I told him to do it. And he had to do it. And that's why I got the nickname of Mother. But they had another name after it. He said, you're right, I'm married and I have 2 kids.
Outstanding, Joe. Thank you. John, they changed this on us a little bit later down the line, and they went away from metal on these trays and cups and glasses at the mess halls for garrison. Okay, now we have a couple of uniforms up here that belong to somebody in this group, and I think that Mr. Somebody needs to come up here and give us a little insight. And I want you to know something, guys. Have you ever seen anything starched as stiff as that? God, I love those uniforms. When they went to those slouchy camouflage uniforms, I just despised them. Remember, we would tailor these things, they would be leg huggers, they'd be arm huggers, we'd have the sleeves adjusted to the right length, and then we would send these things out and have them starched to the chest. Phil, when were these actually last starched?
February of 1970.
Did they use formaldehyde in that?
I don't know, and I have no idea how I got into them.
Oh my God.
But they had to be very uncomfortable. But I've got 3 sets of them. You know? They were last one in February 1970. Yeah. I was at Fort Carson and went from there to Vietnam. Yeah. Pretty stiff. Anyway, it's just something that I'm gonna hang it on the wall in the house and just have it as a display. Whether I can put it into a museum or whatever.
I know where you get a mannequin. And what do we have here?
This is my father's uniform. World War II, 1942, of course. And if you just feel the weight of this thing and can imagine what it was like to wear that, the heat and everything. But just something, I brought it in to honor the World War II veterans and to just thank him for everything, for sure. Pardon? He fought the Battle of Fort Benning, Georgia. My dad was born in northern New York, and he only got to 8th grade, and then he got drafted, and they sent him to Buffalo, New York, to be a policeman, you know. And the sergeant recognized that my dad really didn't want to be a policeman, so he told him, when I say right face, you go left. Well, 2 days later, he was moved out of that position and he went to Denver to be a company clerk. And as an 8th grader, he wasn't very, able to do the job. And he remembered the sergeant's first comment. It's not how many words you type per minute, it's how accurate. And after 2 weeks, he worked up to 7 words a minute. So they moved him to Fort Benning to be a truck driver. And they asked him, do you have a problem transporting the African American soldiers? And he said, I've never been around them. I have no problem. And so that's what he did. Took them out to the firing ranges and every place else. He said he never had such good food in all of his life. That.
Outstanding. Thank you for hauling that stuff in.
One final thing. All of you have memories. All of you figure out what to do with those memories, whether you write them down or whatever else. It's so important. And I've got one quick story to tell you. One of my favorite memories. I was in a Corps of Engineer construction battalion in Vietnam when we built a road. And we had no American support. So being a good officer, I had an opportunity and I traded a bundle of plywood for a 50 caliber machine gun with ammunition. Well, some inspector comes around and said, you're not authorized to have that, and took it away. I later traded another bundle for an 81 millimeter mortar with, I think I had 24 rounds. Christmas Eve, 1970, our battalion chaplain spent the night with us. And he goes up to me and says, teach me how to fire the mortar. I said, chaplain, you can't do that. Oh yes, I want to do it. So I took him outside. We went through the drill and he took the mortar, held it up. Oh Lord, please don't let this hit anybody. Thank you for it.
Well, I've got a little story I wanted to tell you about a couple of items here that were presented to me by Barry McDonald. I doubt if any of you have seen this particular item, but this happens to be a World War II Japanese songbook that, as best as I can determine, scripted to the Imperial Japanese military personnel. That's evident by looking at a few of the military photographs that probably have some relationship to the specific songs. This book is roughly 150 pages, contains many songs, all written in the Japanese language, as well as the notes to accommodate the songs, and included, I'm sure, is the Japanese national anthem. It's well worn, but it's very, very legible. And I've gone online and I have searched for a similar book, but without success. So I would think that this might be a very sought-after collectible for those who seek out World War II memorabilia. I had Hank take a look at this. I just flipped the page to a particular song with the notes that are published, and she immediately went through and read the notes off to me, so I would assume anybody could probably play these on any instrument. I would also have to assume, because of its size, pocket size, like so many things that were published by the military for field use, it was probably worn in a breast pocket somewhere. But it's in pretty darn good shape for the shape that it's in. Now, Barry also provided me this particular booklet. And I want you to know, I was totally impressed with this book. This was distributed to Army Air Force personnel that attended gunnery training for B-17 and B-24 bomber aircraft, and it details how to accurately shoot down enemy fighter planes as a dedicated machine gunner on a bomber aircraft, regardless of the particular machine gun that they might have been assigned to, whether it had been a tail gunner, nose gunner, waist gunner, top turret gunner, and ball turret gunner. The detail that the United States Army Air Force's Training Aid Division went through in publishing this, it was just amazing to me to see all of the schematics that they put together. This was quite a find. And where Barry came up with this, I have no idea. Now, this particular book has some handwritten notes by a PFC Edgar A. McDuff, the student that it actually belonged to, as well as a certificate of proficiency for completion of the Flexible Gunnery School, and this certificate is dated June 3rd, 1944. This certificate is in the same condition as the book, stellar condition. On one side of this certificate is printed all of the various courseworks that these gunnery students went through in this training. And beside each coursework, it identifies the number of hours that they spent in that particular course. And totaling up the hours, I figured that this course was probably about a 3-week course. And on the back, it states, Certificate of Proficiency, Army Air Force's Flexible Gunnery School, Harlingen Army Airfield in Harlingen, Texas. This is to certify that McDuff Edgar A., serial number, PFC, United States Army, has satisfactorily completed the course of instruction prescribed for aerial gunners. Subject and grades are shown on the reverse side. And it was signed by Captain Frederick T. Neff. This certificate itself looks like it was just printed yesterday. Now, I did just reading this and having a name and so forth, it just prompted me to do a little bit more research. And you know, I am about that. I did a little research on Edgar A. McDuff. McDuff was born in 1925 in Milan, Missouri. He served as a gunner on the Captain D.G. Williams bomber crew of the 458th Bomb Group, and he was ultimately promoted to a staff sergeant. Now, Sergeant Edgar McDuff kept a detailed list of all the missions that he flew on, as did many of the combat airmen. And some of the information in his list, such as the tail number of the ship flown by his crew, helps fill in some holes on data that was garnered from official records. His very last mission took place in April 25, 1945, just prior to the war and European theater ending, and that was his 33rd mission. So I started doing a little bit more research. Come to find out, I found a photograph of Edgar A. McDuff. At this time, he was a sergeant, and he was on R&R in London at the London Pavilion, standing beside an unknown officer who looks totally intoxicated. I went further and I found this particular photograph of his bomber group. And it lists the names of everyone and their position on that bomber. And standing over here to your right is Edgar A. McDuff. Now I did further research and I said, hey, maybe this dude is still alive, maybe not. But I figured that he had been long dead. Sure as hell, come to find out, I found an obituary. He died in 1996 and was living in Oklahoma City when he died. So that is how this ever got out of the family. I had no idea. This is truly a treasure that is should go back. This should go back to somebody in that family. And I would be willing to bet you that somebody in that family would be most appreciative. This even has some of his handwritten notes here from the gunnery course that he went through on the back pages of this training aid. Superb item, superb item. Thank you for bringing that. I do have a couple announcements that I wanted to make for today. We will have a guest speaker to join us next Friday, August the 8th. John Whitney, who is the Fire Chief, Superstition Fire and Medical District, happens to serve the city of Apache Junction and the unincorporated areas of Gold Canyon, Superstition Foothills, Goldfield Foothills, and Entrada del Oro. Chief Whitney will have accompanying him a team of firefighters that will offer to take your vital signs prior to the 8:15 a.m. start time. And from what I witnessed, most of us should probably take advantage of that service while you can. So please plan on being present and supporting our guest speaker and his team next Friday, Chief John Whitney, Superstition Fire and Medical District. And also, if you would, please deposit your name tags on your exit from the building. As a final reminder, let us not overlook the importance of our Red Friday mission to keep our deployed warfighters in our thoughts and prayers and continue to demonstrate our support for these fine men and women. Enjoy your weekend.